Hello and welcome to another session on spectrum. So let's continue with the poem. We stopped with we are digging a grave in the sky, it is ample to lie there. So we stopped there, right? So let's continue. A man in the house, he plays with serpents, he writes. He writes when the night falls to Germany, your golden hair, Margaret. He writes it and walks from the house. The stars glitter, he whistles his dogs up. He whistles his Jews out and orders a grave to be dug in the earth. He commands us strike up for the dance. So here we have the poem introduces us to a new character. And this new character is given a name. He is not given any specific name, but he's just given a name, a man. So this is a reference perhaps to the camp guard, the guards in the concentration camp. So it's very clear from this word man that Celan is actually talking to us or telling us, hinting at the camp guards, and therefore this camp guard is a member of the Nazi regime or the Nazi service, and they are in charge of the concentration camp. So he tells us, Celan tells us about this man in detail. His living condition is different from that of the prisoners. The prisoners who live there, the prisoners are living a terrible, pathetic life. Whereas the living condition of this man is totally different. He lives in a house like a normal human being. And he has all the luxuries. He lives a happy life. He has his family with him. They are not separated from him. He does not know the pangs of what separation is. So he is living a very perfect and a happy life. His life is different. His life is quite different from that of his of the prisoners. That's why he says a man in the house. So see, it's not the camp. The house here is a reference to the place where the guard is living. Okay, and this word, one small word, brings in a sharp contrast with the life or the living condition of the guard with that of the prisoners. The living condition of the prisoners is terrible. They are stuffed in the barracks. They are living there. Those ghettos, I presume I had shown some of those pictures in the last video. And they are living a terrible life as all these, they're living in a very crowded, very unhealthy, very unhygienic, suffocated manner. You can't even call them a camp. I can't even call them. It's like a terrible living condition. So this guard, Celan tells us through the poem, through the lines of the poem, Celan tells us of his sinister side also. Look at it. A man in the house, he plays with the serpents, he writes. He plays with the serpents. Now the word serpents is here used in a different manner. It is used in a negative, it is used with a negative connotation. He introduces, Paul Celan also introduces the dark and sinister side of this guard as well. It's not just that he is living on a better life than that of the prisoners, but also the dark side, the sinister side of this guard is also vividly portrayed by Paul Celan. Now look at the word. A man in the house, he plays with the serpents. He writes when the night falls to Germany, your golden-haired Margaret. He writes it and walks from the house, the stars glitter. He whistles his dogs up. He whistles his Jews out and orders a grave to be dug in the earth. He commands us strike up for the dance. So look at the word serpent. He plays with the vipers and he plays with the snakes. So he plays with the serpents, that's what he says. So here the serpents is used in a very negative manner. It is used in a negative connotation. And it is about the sinful, snakes as sinful, as in the Christian mythology or the Jewish mythology, the Adam and Eve story. It is sinful, it is that of betrayal. It is that of the loss of innocence. It is if you look at the Bible, it is said that the snakes were very innocent beings. They both, loss of innocence here is a reference to Adam and Eve losing their innocence, and also the snakes, the serpent, which again was a creation of God, was actually a very innocent being. An innocent, it was not poisonous. It did not move on its belly. It was a very calm, very innocent animal, and it was the only reason as to why Satan gets into the body of the snake is because in the snake, if he gets into the body of the snake, they cannot identify or they cannot make the difference, or they can't see the difference. So that is why the Satan gets into the body of the snake, it seems. And so here when God punishes or curses Adam and Eve, he also curses the serpent for not being alert. So he curses the serpent as to, there is a loss of innocence. So in a way, it is a loss of innocence. We can look at it as a loss of innocence, the snakes. So he also says that the snakes, Paul Celan uses it in a very negative way. This man, he plays with dark things. He plays with the sinister things. So sinful, betrayal, loss of innocence is a reference to what they are suffering, or to their sufferings at the hands of these sinful, betrayed people, that is the Jews and the Gypsies. What happened in the Holocaust? See, Hitler never let the world know that such a heinous crime was going on. All the things were sealed after the war. In fact, the world got to know about the Holocaust only through the memoirs which were dug deep inside the earth, when there was a large grave digging and all. Only then they found the bodies, these cremation places, all these right now they are all preserved, but see, they were all very cleverly, cunningly hidden from the world, and the people were so it was all done also under the shadows of the Second World War. So the world did not come to know of what is happening there. So many people were brought to this camp. They never knew that they were going to be killed. So it is a story of betrayal. It is a story of sin as well. So through the guard, Paul Celan takes you to the whole Nazi regime as such. So the dark and the sinister side of the Nazi people, or that of Hitler, or through the god, is portrayed. Okay, so the god, again, he fancies himself. He thinks about himself as a writer. He fancies himself as a writer. He says he writes, when night falls to Germany, your golden hair, Margaret. So Margaret is Margaret is a character, a literary character who has blonde hair, and Margaret can be taken as an example for the Aryan race. Germany's rich culture, rich literature, as well as it stands for the blue-eyed Aryan women, or the blue-eyed Aryan race as such. So it can be seen as a metaphor for the Aryan race as such. So the god here, he fancies himself. He writes to Germany, your golden hair, Margaret. So blonde hair. See, these Aryans were all blonde, or their hair was blonde, yellow, golden hair. These Germans who were of the superior race, it seems. So that's how they classified them, and therefore those people with blue eyes were often, or those who looked like Aryans were not eliminated or persecuted or executed. And the god, therefore, here he fancies himself as a writer, as a man of culture. Again, see how ironically Celan uses the word culture. This man, the god, he is portrayed as a literate man. An educated man is always cultured. Education helps him to be a cultured human being. So here, this man therefore behaves like a man of culture. But by day, that is, at night, he is a romantic poet, and by daytime, what is he? The sinister side, the dark side of the god, the sadistic god is portrayed. So when at daytime, when it is day, he grows dark. He loses his culture. He loses whatever he has gained out of education. He becomes a sadist. He is no longer a romantic poet. So at night he looks at the sky, he fancies the stars, he looks at the stars and he writes beautiful poems. He thinks about the golden-haired Margaret, which is again a literary character in a great, or that shows Germany's great literature. But during the daytime, he changes his nature. He becomes that sadist man who torture the Jews. So Celan uses this in a very ironic sense. He is a nature lover and he takes time to appreciate things like the twinkling stars. It's all good, beautiful, wonderful. That's what a human being ought to be. But when you look at these stars, if you look at which stars he is thinking about, or look at this man, he looks above these stars. When you just think about these stars, where does he, at night time, he would be sitting outside on his chair and he would be looking at the stars that shine over this death camp. The stars are glittering over this death camp. You can't help but realize how trusted and messed up the god has become. So he tells us, how can a good human being appreciate nature, be happy, write romantic poems, about looking at the stars shining above. See, if it's normal to write beautiful poetry, beautiful romantic poems, looking at the sky. The sky and the stars, they twinkle, they give us hope. But here, these stars that twinkle are twinkling above what? They are twinkling above these death chambers, these gas chambers. So here, it is kind of, we find it difficult. How can a man write poems, a normal human being write poems or appreciate the stars while knowing that the people are dying a gruesome death on the other side of the fence, the death chambers. And this is the death chamber or the death gas chamber that these prisoners also will end up. They'll be starved. They'll have to work till they are like they can't work anymore. And once they can't work anymore, that skeleton, they're terribly like that. You can't imagine the condition. Those people are then taken to either to cremate. I showed you in the video some of these videos where you find skeleton-like people. They're dead and they are put in the large crematorium. They're burnt. No evidence. Nobody gets to know. A horrifying crime, right? So here it is this place that these people also would end up. These prisoners also would end up. And this man, the guard, he obsesses or he idealizes the blonde, beautiful, golden-haired Margaret, which is a literary character from the great epic poem Faust, written by Wolfgang von Goethe. Goethe, the great poet, the great German poet. Goethe has written the famous epic poem Faust, and Margaret is a literary character with blonde hair. And again, Margaret stands for the rich culture, rich culture of Germany. And also, it is a symbol for what? The Aryan race, the supreme Aryan race. So here first, this poem, he says, might have been, see, it might have been famous, it might have been celebrated, it is okay, celebrated poem in Germany, but because it represents the heights of culture achieved by Germany, say 100 years before. So when he is writing about or idealizing Margaret, he is idealizing a culture that was rich, that was good, that was beautiful, that was heavenly 100 years ago. Now, with Hitler coming in, this beautiful culture of Germany, this beautiful literature of Germany, everything is lost. So, how can you think about culture of Germany right now when Germany had started killing millions of people under Hitler? So the statement is very ironic. He thinks or he idealizes the god, thinks and idealizes Margaret, again, as I told you, literary character in the epic poem Faust by Goethe. This poem stands, or it speaks about what? It speaks about the great culture of Germany. But here Celan uses it in a very ironic sense. He tells us that the culture that you are speaking about, the culture of Germany, the culture, the tradition, the literature of Germany that you are speaking about is something of the past. It existed 100 years before Germany started murdering people. Now you cannot consider Germany as a symbol of culture. You cannot consider Germany as a symbol of rich tradition. Bygone are those traditions and culture. And I'll just tell you this poem also, a little bit about the poem. If you're very curious of the poem, just a little. The poem Faust by Goethe is essentially about a scholar named Faust. Now, it's similar to Dr. Faustus also. You have Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, but it's similar to it. Again, the poem, this is about a scholar named Faust who sells his soul to Satan. The soul of the scholar is sold to Satan. In return, he gets power and he gets knowledge. Okay, and along the way, what happens is he seduces a poor, sweet German girl called Margaret. Okay, so here if you look at it, if you try to look at this poem, there it stands as a symbol. Faust here, through Margaret, though Faust is not mentioned anywhere in the poem, Margaret, the word Margaret takes us to Goethe's Faust. Faust is a scholar who sells his soul to the Satan or to the devil, to Satan. In return, he gets power and knowledge, which can be taken as a reference to whom? To Hitler. Okay, and he seduces a German girl, Margaret. So again, this can be taken as the people of Germany, the Aryan race as such. See, Margaret stands for the Aryan race here in the poem. Celan uses it as a symbol for the Aryan race. Now here he also says, seduces. See, the original poem Faust seduces, in that the scholar seduces this girl. German girl. So the people in Germany are seduced, are tempted, they are mentally, they are made to think. There is a kind of, they have poisoned the mind of all the Germans to have a hatred for the Jews and other people who are non-Aryans, who do not belong to this Aryan race. So in a way you can look at that from Margaret. We can go all the way to this section of which tells us of Hitler and Nazis. Okay, but then you'll have to do a little research work. So I just told you this out of curiosity. Otherwise, you can just take Margaret as a symbol. The guard uses Margaret as a symbol for Germany under the Nazi regime, or for Germans or the superior Aryan race, as a symbol for the Nazi ideal race or the Aryan race. The guard's love for Margarita, the guard's love for Margarita and romantic music symbolizes the tainted, the tarnished, the broken legacy of German culture. German culture is now tainted. It has become impure. The guard's love for romantic music. Romanticism in Germany was prevalent during, or was very intense during the 20th century in Germany. That is, Romanticism was in Germany during the 20th century was very high. It was that high period of romanticism during the 20th century. So here Celan uses it in a different way. He uses it to symbolize the tainted, the destroyed, the impure, which is made impure legacy of German culture. Or death, not for using this fugue, the form of fugue, death fugue, using this form of fugue, a musical composition, is also associated with what it. See, fugue is actually a beautiful musical composition where there is a repetition of the theme. That also, again, fugue was perfected by Bach, and the great German composer, and it was the greatest time or the rich culture of Germany. Even that is used to denote what? To denote death or suffering. A musical composition, a romantic musical composition is used, an important musical composition is used in terms of death and suffering here. Okay, so he inverts everything. Right from the beginning, black milk, the color of milk is inverted. Likewise, Margaret in shows, which is to show the rich culture and legacy of Germany, again stands for the tainted image, because the god loves this rich culture. He is a romantic poet at night. That shows the romanticism, the peak of romanticism in Germany, the rich culture of Germany, or the rich literature of Germany. And all this, being an educated person, he uses all this for what? He uses all this to unleash the terrible monster in him. He uses during the daytime. At night, he is a romantic poet. Through this, we understand that he's learned, he's educated also. But his education has done nothing to him. It has not prevented him from being a good human being with a good soul. Education has done nothing to him. Even though he's a poet, even though he's rich, he knows the rich culture and tradition of German literature. Though he's a poet, a poet is a person who should be very sensitive. Even then, he has used, or there is no change in his sadist behavior. He's a beast during the morning. All right. So he tells, if you look at the next few lines, he writes it and walks from the house that the stars glitter. He whistles his dogs up. So the dogs here again stands for those vicious creatures. Again, it is used in a negative connotation. The dogs that are used as a torture weapon to torture the prisoners in case they try to escape, even a small escape. I hope you have visited those sites that I had sent you. I mean, I had given you two links. One is on Holocaust and one is about the fugue, the musical composition. If you have watched that, you will be able to understand what I am trying to tell you here. Because those people who tries to escape, either they are shot or they are brutally tortured by the vicious dogs that these people have, these Germans have. They are brutally tortured. They are made to bite these people. So he whistles his dogs up. He whistles his Jews out. So he whistles his Jews out during the daytime. He whistles, and these prisoners, they come out from these ghettos, these concentration camps, and they are forced to work. And what work they do? They are digging the graves They're digging the graves for whom? They're digging the graves for those people who have died and who have been put in the in the death chambers, or either cremated, or they are put in the gas chambers, mostly for those who are put in the gas chambers. Cremated, it's fine, the body becomes ash. So again, as I told you earlier, some were cremated, they were large crematoriums, some bodies were cremated and others were put in the buried in the graves dug by these prisoners. So these graves are being dug for those people who have been killed in the gas chambers, and they will be buried there. He commands us, strike up for the dance, and he commands whom? The Jews to come and start. Some of them are to entertain the prisoners. Now here he commands us, strike up for the dance, is a reference to how these Jews were treated by these guards in the concentration camps. Some were made to sing the death fugue, some were made to play musical instruments, okay, which had the sad songs, which had the sad songs of death, the music of death. They were made to either entertain the people so that they would be able to work, dig the graves, but that's most not likely, but it could have been a way of, a sadistic kind of way of reminding them that death is lurking at your doorstep, and they were forced to play this death fugue. And some would dance and entertain, others would dig the graves. So that's what it's all about. We shall stop here, and the next few lines we shall take up in the next few videos. So thank you and keep safe.